Hey guys, so I'm re-recording the the Dream and Dream Theories video because apparently the audio cut out on the first video. So if you tried to watch it before now, it apparently cut out about the 9 minute mark and didn't come back. So I'm re-recording this. Hopefully it goes a little smoother than the first one did. Um, so anyway, this set of notes or this portion of the unit is focused on dreams and dream theories, and this is one of those days that if we were actually having class, this is the day that I get a ton of questions about. Oh, I dreamed this, I dreamed that. Like, what does it mean? What is this symbol? Blah blah blah. And honestly, the answer is always going to be I don't know. I mean, there's so many. There's a lot of dream theories out there. We're going to talk about the three that have really kind of been the more, I guess you could say, the more prominent ones over the years in psychology. But um, that we're going to talk about them. But until we are able, I say this every year, until we're able to actually like hook up a projector and project our dreams out for everybody else to see and be able to talk about them and discuss them and have that person say, oh yeah, well this is why this is here and this is why this is here. I mean, we're never going to know for sure why we dream. It's a very personal experience, but it's also a very shared experience as well because everybody dreams. Every we talked about it with sleep. I mean, every night when we go into REM sleep, we dream. We don't remember every dream, but we go into REM sleep every single night. So, um, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get going here. So dreams um, themselves are just images, sensations, emotions, physiological reactions, whatever, to brain activity while we sleep. Um, when we dream, our body actually experiences um, the physiological reactions that we may be having to a dream. So, for example, um, if we're scared in a dream, like we have a nightmare, then we are going. If we wake up during that dream, we are going to feel like we would if we were fearful in reality. We would probably be breathing hard. We would probably be sweating. Our heart rate would be elevated. Our breathing, like I said, our breathing would be elevated. Um, our pulse would probably be very high. So, yes, when we dream, they are just images and ideas and things like that playing out in our mind, but our body interprets them as if they are real. And that's one of the more interesting things about dreams is that we experience them as if they are real, even though they're not. Um, Even then, they can feel very real, and we'll get more into that more in just a minute. Um, and there's a bunch of different dream theories out there, but really there's really only three that have really kind of, like I said, stood the test of time in psychology, and they kind of go uh, in kind of a very, and I'll get to this more in just a minute. They go from like dreams being not that important to dreams being very important. And we'll get more into that in just a minute. Before we get into that, some types of dreams, real quick. We already talked about daydreams, um, and a couple of videos ago when we talked about how daydreams can be important to consciousness and um, being a substitute for behavior and impulsive behavior and things like that. But it's kind of it's kind of a level between full wakefulness and sleep. You're kind of in the middle of being like fully alert and awake, but not fully asleep either. So that's where daydreams kind of fall in. The lucid dreaming are really, or if you've ever experienced lucid dreaming, you know what I'm talking about. It's a very interesting feeling. It's when you know you are dreaming. It's when you're dreaming, but you know that you're dreaming, and because of that, you can, in a way, you can kind of control yourself in the dream or control what's happening in the dream. It's usually a very, like, you're aware and you can kind of think and sort of make decisions, but it's not like you're actually it's not like Inception. If you've ever seen the movie Inception, where they're actually like building the dream and things like that, like that's not really what lucid dreaming is, but it's more of a you're aware of it and you can kind of control what's happening. And we tend to lucid dream more the longer we sleep. That's why we tend to have more lucid dreams the closer to when we wake up, which would make sense because usually you're right beneath consciousness and you're kind of able to almost control what's happening a little bit better right before you wake up. So, and just a quick side note, I've been told by students in the past that apparently there are exercises and things like that that you can do prior to falling asleep that supposedly help you lucid dream easier. I've never tried it, but I have had students in the past say that it is successful and they've been able to do that. So anyway, just something to maybe give it a shot there if you're interested in lucid dreaming. Nightmares. I don't feel like I really have to go over nightmares very much. Everybody's had them. Everybody doesn't like them. They're disturbing. They're scary. They're fearful. They cause you to wake up anxious, frightened, scared. And usually nightmares are the dreams that we tend to remember easier than other dreams because we tend to wake up easier during them. We remember the dreams we wake up during much easier than when we are asleep. Excuse me, we remember the dreams much easier if we wake up in the middle of them than if we complete the dream fully and don't wake up. Like we just go from REM sleep to another sleep stage. We don't remember it very often. So, yeah, so nightmares, pretty self-explanatory. I feel like everybody kind of knows what a nightmare is. Recurring dreams, these can be good or bad. Recurring dreams are dreams that tend to repeat themselves with very little variation. In other words, if you have a recurring dream, you tend to have the same dream every single time every single time you have it, it's the same dream. There's very little change to it. And like I said, these can be nightmares, these can be positive dreams, these can be pleasurable dreams. But recurring dreams are dreams that repeat themselves pretty regularly. It doesn't necessarily mean every single night, but they can be every couple nights, every week. I mean, it's a pretty regular thing. And as you can probably expect, these are dreams that we tend to remember pretty easily because we have them over and over again. Excuse me. Okay, prophetic dreams. These are dreams that seem to like predict the future. I'm not a huge believer in prophetic dreams personally. I'm not saying they're not real or anything. But usually the ones that I have had that looking back tend to, almost seem to predict the future. Usually when you think about it a little bit more and you kind of break it down a little bit, it's a little easier to explain. Or it's pretty easy to explain with facts. So I've never had a prophetic dream that is just totally 100% completely foreshadowing to the future. However, I will say, I always tell this story in class and try not to tell too many stories on these videos, but about, I'd say maybe 7, 8 years ago, me and my wife had not been married terribly long, but or my mother-in-law, her mom, told us one time that she had a dream that we had 2 kids and that, there was the older girl and a younger boy, and that we were around, the Christmas tree at Christmas. And my mother-in-law loves Christmas, so that's not that crazy of a dream for her. But obviously that's what happened, and it was well before we had kids. And when we brought it up a couple, either this last Christmas or the Christmas before, said, "Hey, you remember when you told us about this dream?" And she was like, "Yeah, it seems so real." And I, I don't, obviously I didn't have the dream myself, but there have been plenty of people who have said they've had those types of dreams that seem to predict the future with very, very, very high accuracy. So anyway, not saying they don't exist. I personally am not a huge believer in them, but I mean, I am not trying to say they don't exist ever. And then epic dreams. Epic dreams are dreams that are not epic in the sense of like, that was epic, bro. Like not that, but it's more like epic in the sense that like you have a dream so real and for like personal and like significant that like you can't ignore it. It almost like speaks to you. I know that sounds very weird, but like for example, that would be like having a dream that where maybe you a dream that die from a habit that you have or something that's a negative habit, like smoking or drinking or whatever, and you like have a dream that causes you, so you decide to like right then and there you decide to like completely stop what you're doing and don't do it again to keep that from like occurring because it seems so real and it seems so personal. So anyway, so that's what that is. So here's that chart I was kind of telling you about with um, these are the three dream theories that have kind of, like I said, kind of stood the test of time for over the years. And I'm going to explain each of them obviously in more detail here in just a minute. But um, so activation, synthesis, information processing, and wish fulfillment theory um, are the three theories that have really been the more, or that are the more popular and more prominent ones. Activation synthesis is the one that kind of says that dreams don't really mean all that much, and whereas wish fulfillment is the one that says dreams are like really important and very significant and symbolic and all that. And then information processing is kind of in the middle. So if you're trying to make like a hierarchy of like where each of these theories is saying that dreams rate on like being important or not so important, you can see it here. So going through them one by one with activation synthesis just says that when we're sleeping, when we enter REM sleep, our brain is so active and our brain is so sporadic with its activity that it's a weird kind of just hodgepodge combination of brain activity. And because it's going so haywire while we sleep, our brain takes all that activity and synthesizes it into, like, combines it with our pre-existing knowledge and memories, and almost like the brain interprets it as if it's happening in reality, and it's not. So it's like it takes the things that we like, the random brain activity, adds in the things we already know, and just creates this like weird hodgepodge of like, or weird combination of like things we like, memories and things like that we already know, and like just random stuff, which makes, if you think about it, kind of makes sense with some dreams, because normally we have dreams that are just so completely outlandish, but that there's an element of it in them that is personal and makes sense. So like you can have a dream that's like 100% off the wall crazy, like where everything is like totally like insane, but yet the people in it are people that and care for and you have memories with. So this theory just says that it's just a combination, but yet it's random, and we shouldn't take anything as being, as like having some deeper symbolic meaning. It's just a random combination of brain activity and memories and knowledge and all that that we just interpret while we're in REM sleep. Okay. So then moving on to information processing, this just says that as we sleep, our brain tends to take all of the information that we have encountered that day or since we last slept, the people we meet, the things we do, the things we've learned, um, and then it processes them and almost like files them away where they're supposed to go. Um, and that's why I put this picture on here, like the picture on the left, like over here and this right here. So like this picture here on the left is like, you see all tangled and like crazy combinations and a web of things we learn on a regular basis. But then when we sleep, it's like we wake up and our brain is kind of like this, like it's organized, it's sorted, it's all that information from the previous day is where it needs to go and where it needs to fit in. And what this theory says is that as our brain is doing that, that might show up in our dreams. For example, like, and I know I always ask this question in class of like, how many of you have ever had a dream where someone you just met that day, like literally the day you met them, they showed up in your dream that night? And usually there's one or two people who raise their hand saying, "Oh yeah, that's happened." Even weirder is when the person raises their hand like, "Oh, that happened with you on the first day of school," which is just weird. But I get it because like that's what our brain does is it tries to sort all this information and put it where it needs to go. And if it happens during REM sleep, it can show up in our dreams. And another kind of element to this is if you've ever had a problem that like you're really like thinking hard about and trying to solve, whether it's trying to figure out where you want to go to college, or whether you should ask out that person you like, or whether I should just shave my head completely and just get rid of all this hair and like whatever. Like, it's a decision that you're struggling with. Then maybe you have you ever if you ever heard the term like sleeping on it, and you've ever gone to bed and you wake up and you have like a clearer sense of what to do about that problem. That relates back to this theory as well, because it's saying that like our brains like filters out all the unnecessary stuff and gets to the core of like what we need to do with that. So that's just another example. This next slide kind of shows like, so we can have, I don't really know. I put this on here, but it's not the greatest image in the world. But like, it's saying that like, all these things we dream about. I mean, I don't know why this woman would dream about the price of tuna or a traffic jam, but hey, whatever. But that's obviously the price of tuna, a traffic jam. That stuff's not important, so it's filtered out, and what's retained apparently a very important karate move, but what like apparently these things are retained for the next day or whatever. Um, and that's why also this theory also explains why you dream about things that are like of actual concern to you. Um, I have had dreams of being unprepared as a teacher, like on the first day, like walking in and being like, "Oh crap, I didn't do anything," and that's a fear of mine, and that's or coaching, same thing. And my wife has said she's had like back when she was in law school, she would have dreams about showing up for an exam and not having studied, and that was a fear of hers. So like that's what again this theory explains that because that's an actual concern you have in reality, so it makes its way into your dream. So anyway, this is the one that's kind of in the middle of like, well, yeah, there's some element to the dream of being important, but also some of it's just random and not all, not super symbolic or whatever, and you just kind of move on from it. But anyway, so that's information process. And then lastly, I told you Freud was going to be back. Sigmund wrote a book called The Interpretation of Dreams, which is where he outlined this theory. He called it the wish fulfillment theory. And he believed that when we dream, our conscious, like, guard or filter that we normally have while we're awake is lowered, and therefore we can see into the subconscious much easier than when we are awake and our kind of guard is up and like we're aware of what's happening. So what Freud said is like when we dream, the dreams are like hooking up a projector to our subconscious and playing them out as if it was a movie. Um, he believed it was an insight into our motives, an insight into our desires and our conflicts and all of that stuff. So he believed that dreams were super important, and the easiest, well, one of the easiest ways to look into our subconscious mind and our unconscious mind. And he believed that when we dream, there's really kind of two things going on in our dream. One, we have the storyline of the dream, the images, the people, what's happening, all that stuff. And he called that manifest content. So that's like the stuff that like if you were describing to your friends, like, oh wow, listen to this crazy dream I had. Whatever you say next, whatever you say to your friends, that's the manifest content. That's the content like of just the storyline itself and the dream and the symbols and the images and all that. And then the latent content, that's the content that is where the symbolism shows up. So that what that action that you did in that dream, what the symbolic meaning of that was, according to Freud. And again, not to get too deep into Freudian theory or whatever, but like he basically believed that like again, Freud is big on like unconscious like hidden you know desires. So Freud might say that if you have a dream where you try to kill your best friend, it doesn't mean that like you literally want to kill your best friend, but it may mean that there is something in that relationship that is unresolved and that needs to be addressed. What that might be, I don't know. I'm just giving you an example. The symbolism doesn't need to be taken seriously. Like, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily wanting to kill your best friend or whatever, but it might mean that there's some kind of conflict there that hasn't been addressed and is showing up in your subconscious. As with any Freudian theory, it's very hit or miss amongst psychologists. Some are big into Freudian ideas and this theory as well. Some say it's a little vague. It doesn't really have a lot of scientific basis to it. Um, so it's subjective. So again, with any Freudian idea that we talk about, you know, it, I think there's some validity to. I think there's some you can say, okay, yeah, that sort of makes sense. But overall, I don't know. I get it. I understand what he's trying to say, but again, I don't necessarily know if this is the best explanation for dreams. So anyway, so that's it for dream theories and dreams and types of dreams. Hopefully, this video makes it to YouTube intact and there's no audio issues. But if for some reason there is, please send me a remind, send me an email, and I will upload another one, hopefully um, before the end of the day tomorrow. But hopefully this makes it through and everything else is fine. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.